Well, welcome to day 3 of Debruary 2022, the 5th year of doing this. I don't know about this. I'm getting old. This is hard. Every day when I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, is it over yet? But anyway, we have a great guest for you today. Ronald Mann. Let me give you a little information about him. He has a PhD in psychology. He's been a practicing clinical psychologist for more than 40 years. So he has a lot of experience. If you have a question about the information that we're going to be presenting to you or any other aspect of a relationship that you're struggling with, this is the man to ask. He says back in the 1990s, he created something called the Love Factor Inventory, the LFI, which he describes as a scientifically validated and standardized assessment to explore an individual's capacity to develop and sustain intimate, loving relationships. It's based on a research study that he did of over 2,000 people. So, and it included men and women. So, I think, this is something really good because it's going to basically measure the skills that you need to have in a relationship. Like, is this person competent? Is this person trustworthy? Is this person dependable? So that you can do the kind of things that I've been advising you guys to do to spend more time assessing this person versus getting all in your feelings and getting out of control. So we're going to have Dr. Mann here to talk about it. I'll be taking some questions from you. Give us about 20 minutes or so to talk about his research and what he's found out. And then we'll start taking your questions, okay? So let me bring Dr. Mann in here. Hi, Dr. Mann.
Hi, Deborah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited about you being here. So we'll have somebody with more experience at this than me, which is always nice. What I wanted to do is, start off by asking you what was behind the idea to do this research. But this was, I'm assuming this, you already had some experience in the professional field, but there had to be some kind of something that happened or something that you thought that made you go forward with this research.
Well, yes, it was an evolution. I was licensed practicing as a psychologist. I've been practicing for maybe 5 or 6 years. At that point, I started in Beverly Hills and then moved up to Northern California. I was up in Nevada City when I was working on this. And as a psychologist, I was trained as an adult and child psychologist. I worked with families, couples, kids, and all the time I had to ask myself questions about a person's capacity to function well. I'm doing these assessments in my mind because they're there and I have to determine, where we're going to go based on their needs and their interests. But in the course of my professional development, I started working with dying children. I don't know if you remember Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She wrote all the stuff on death and dying.
Right.
We became very good friends. She wrote the foreword to my first book, which
Oh,
got on
did
the
he?
LA Times bestseller list. And the book is titled Sacred Healing, Integrating Spirituality with Psychotherapy. I'm in Hawaii at a conference with her on death and dying. I'm a straight psychologist at that time, right? Still in Beverly Hills. And I started having mystical awakening in her presence in Maui. I start seeing past lives. I'm re-experiencing all this stuff. It's like a vivid
Wow.
dream. My chakras opened up. I became clairvoyant. I could energetically heal people. In the 5 days I was there, it changed my life dramatically. Those experiences went on for 4 years. So
Wow.
I changed from being a normal, traditional clinical psychologist. The good news is I had great training. I trained at um, Cedar Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. That was one of the places. I had years of training experience. So now I'm going beyond the limited psychological kind of understanding of who we are. And I'm having direct perceptions, started with an experience of Jesus, being there in Jerusalem. I wasn't anybody special, but I was close to him physically. And this vibration came into me and it opened my heart. And I experienced a kind of love that I'd never felt before. I mean, it was love for everything and everybody. And I could see the interconnection of all life and all beings. And so when I came back from that experience, the whole dimension of love became more important to me because I learned something about love that came from spirit, not that came from my ego of desire, attachment, lust, need, whatever. There was this presence that was flowing through me that was unconditionally sustaining a quality of love and opened up a door of wisdom so I could see people more clearly. My judgment started to melt away, and I was able to be with people in a different kind of way. I was
Interesting.
more present, and so I'm in private practice. Making a living, seeing clients, and because of my background as a psychologist, I had a lot of training and testing. I did a lot of assessments for kids, for adults, and I thought, I was also kind of a business guy, entrepreneur. I thought, well, maybe I can create something, make some extra income. Nobody, and this is back in the 90s, nobody was looking at love. This was before love became much of an issue. Psychology didn't even want to address it. Positive psychology didn't exist. It was all about psychopathology, kind of what's wrong
Mm-hmm.
with you, not what's right with you. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to try, to develop an instrument. It's really an assessment system. We'll talk about it, but it's much more than just you take the test and you get a number and says this is where you are. It's a process. It's a profound process, especially in the hands of a coach or a therapist who understands how to use it. It's got 124 items. And so
Wow.
it asks you how you uh, feel like is describing you. And I picked areas that I would look at every day as a psychologist: compassion, friendship, sensitivity, trust, uh, romantic love, psychological adjustment. How comfortable are you with, we'll call it primitive self, kind of the Jungian notion of your shadow, things like that. And so, I went through the process, standardized it across the United States. It's actually been translated into Mandarin Chinese and normed by a group of college students there as well. And so it became a very accurate tool because I put the research in to make sure it actually measures what it's supposed to measure. And it showed me that there are differences that if you're brought up in a healthy family and it's an intact family, people score higher on those scales. If you come from a divorced family that has had a lot of conflict, your scores are actually lower on these scales because these are learned dimensions. It's not like we're born and say, well, this is it. This is what you got. That's it. So we can learn these things. And the value of these kinds of assessments is it becomes a mirror. You take a look at it, you answer the questions, you see how you answered, and you can see how you compare to the national sample across the United States and see what you're in the 50th percentile, you're high up, you're a little lower down. So you can identify those areas that would be helpful for you. It's
For
also a
you
very
to, so this test that you're taking is basically you're assessing yourself.
that's one version of it. There's two
I
versions.
see. Okay.
One is self-assessment, right? And if people want to take a look at it, it's the lovefactorinventory.com. There's even a free one there. It's a mini version. It's got 20 items instead of 124. Doesn't cost a thing. You can take it, get a flavor of the kind of questions, and get a very quick readout. But it's nothing like the full one. There's also a version for couples, which is fascinating. You and I are in a relationship. I take it and I rate myself. You take it and you rate yourself. And then I take it and I rate how I perceive you. And you take it and you rate how you perceive me. So I have my own delusion about who I think I am, right? And then I can also see your perception of me. This is very common in the business world. They call it 360 assessment because you get the whole view of people around you. And then you look at the gap. If there's a big difference between how I view myself and how you view me, there's a discussion waiting to be had. Uh,
Is this something that people can do on their own, or
yeah.
is this something they should do with, a coach or a psychologist, a
Oh,
therapist?
you can do it on your own. If you go to the website, it's available. You can take it. You automatically get a download of a PDF file that shows you your scores based on the national sample. And also has a report that shows you your individual responses in each scale. If you really want to go deep with it, or you have questions and you don't quite understand it, working with one of my certified coaches or any therapist who's any good who understands testing could help you walk through this and have a discussion at a much deeper level. It's very common for me when I talk to people, I look at their responses. One of this or two of the scales is lower, like their compassion score, their psychological adjustment score is lower. So we look at the items. There's about 10 items for each scale. We can have a 30-minute discussion based on the responses to one or two items because it
Wow.
opens up a conversation. It's kind of like a guided, structured interview. In coaching, the most important skill to have as a coach is be able to ask the right questions, right? And so this helps you as a coach or a therapist ask the questions that are spot on. Saves a lot of time. You go right to the source of what the issues are. And then someone says, well, I think I'm really trusting. I go, well, your trusting score was low. Let's take a look at what you said. One of the items, I don't trust men. Well, you agree with that. So if you're so trusting, why don't you trust men? And the second item, I don't trust women. Well, you agreed with that too. So if you're so trusting, you've just
Well, who's
taken
left,
the
dog?
human population of men and
Right.
women and you say you don't trust anybody. So how is it that you think that you're so trusting? What's going on? So now we're in a discussion that who knows how long it would have taken to get to that. I can get to that in 3 minutes as opposed. So it's saving you money, one, because we're getting down to the real source of what the issues are. And it helps me more clearly identify how I can help you.
So if people take this, they're able to hone in on the areas that they're kind of errant in the way that they choose a mate. Is it going to give them some insight into what they're doing wrong as far as, choosing a person to love?
Yeah, that's a great question, Deborah. It can, and here's where a trained professional can be helpful. We basically, it's through magnetism. People talk about it as the secret, law of attraction, in the yogic world, magnetic energy, consciousness. We're like an energetic being. And if we are kind of vibrating at a certain way that's based on our thoughts, our beliefs, our personal development, how we perceive ourselves, how much we love ourselves. For instance, if our self love is low, we don't respect ourselves, and we don't value ourselves, there's a good chance, 100%, that you're going to magnetize somebody to you who doesn't respect you, isn't really going to love you, because they're basically responding at an unconscious level to how you feel about yourself. And life is, especially around relationship, gets even more complicated. Not only do we recreate the dynamics that we had as children and our inner child work, the John Bradshaw type of work, that our inner life connects to who we tend to choose. But I also have 40 years of experience in meditation and the spiritual path.
Wow.
And I used to do past life readings with people when I was working in private practice. And so there's a continuity of who we are. How we behave in other lifetimes gets carried over. And oftentimes, we meet somebody and we think, my God, I feel like I'm the person my whole life. Well, you've known them before. You're picking up an old friendship. And oftentimes there is unfinished business. And so are drawn together. So the more introspective we can be, the greater our intuitive awareness that comes from kind of spiritual development. We can perceive not only psychological levels within us, but we can also perceive spiritual aspects of who we are, because we're not just a psychological being, we're also a soul.
Right.
And the soul has a substantial part to play, not only in who we are, who we choose, but our capacity to have wonderful, loving, intimate connections with people. The more
That's beautiful.
aware we are, there's an energetic presence that happens when we're conscious. That heart to heart connection that comes from the soul is one of the most profound ways to bond with somebody and connect with somebody. And if you want to feel fulfilled, you need to find somebody to have that deeper kind of connection. Physical attraction goes, interests sometimes change. Uh, the deeper you're connected through your heart, the deeper the quality and the more profound the time can be together.
Aren't most people afraid of that though? The
Absolutely.
feeling of vulnerability and the fear that comes with being so exposed.
They are. Unfortunately, in our world, we're not trained for that. We're typically afraid of being judged. Depends on how we're brought up. If we're not brought up in a unconditionally loving environment with parents who are comfortable with being open and revealing, then we're trained. We're trained to stay guarded, not to open up, because we're oftentimes afraid that, well, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me. How could anybody love me if they really knew, what I felt or what I thought? And so, uh, your point is well taken. It takes a lot of courage to choose to be vulnerable, to choose to introspect. There's a saying that comes out of the Bhagavad Gita. It says, out of 1,000 people, only one will try and find me. This is God talking. Out of those 1,000, only one will actually find me. Most people um, choose to avoid that deeper look in themselves. And that's one of the things I like about this process is that it helps you in a friendly, supportive way to take a look at what's going on inside. Because it's not judging you. You're the one who answers the questions.
Right.
Uh, the questions are there. They're neutral. So you're telling me how you feel about that in relationship to your life. And then we're going to have a nice discussion to explore, well, where does that come from? And there are lots of techniques that trained coaches and therapists have to help you grow, transmute consciousness, evolve. And that kind of development and self awareness can help you love yourself more and make better choices. But it's in,
Luckily for us, Ron, the people that come to this channel, it's not like the biggest channel. We don't have 100,000 people, but everyone who comes here has that mindset. They're
mm,
here to try to become a better person and get an understanding. So they'll be, they'll be very receptive to
oh, that's
what you're
great.
having to say. I put the URL for the test in the chat. It will also appear in the show description if I haven't already put it there. I can't remember, but so you ladies can go, excuse me, and take it. Ron, I wanted to ask you something that I keep seeing that comes up is people have a sense of, no, let me not judge it. Let me just ask you. They see a situation that is very bad. I mean, they're being hurt, lied to, manipulated, you know, set up by a narcissist in some horrible relationship. What is behind the strong desire to stay there and try to quote make it work? Why are these people so hesitant to let that go and find someone who would be a healthy, rewarding relationship? You have any insight on that? Because I see that so much.
Well, it's a good question, Deborah, because there's a lot like that, and we see it in the movies. I mean, they make films about that, especially women being abused by men and staying in these bad relationships. And typically, one, there's issues of fear, lack of self-worth, low self-esteem, and dependency kinds of issues. So it takes a lot of courage to leave a bad relationship. So if you're really getting abused, chances are you're being threatened. And the threat is, if you leave, I'll kill you, I will hurt you, I will take our kids, I will destroy whatever. So there's fear of retaliation. So one has to have a lot of courage and get a good support system. Get people around you who care for you, love you, will help you, even if it might be financially for a period of time if you have to
Right.
move out. So there's that level of fear. There's also a question about, how much do you love yourself? I mean, if you really value and honor yourself, you say to yourself, I don't deserve this treatment. You know, part of being a healthy person is to be able to set appropriate boundaries and not let people walk all over you, take
Right.
advantage of you, hurt you. Uh, there's a time to say no, say, I don't deserve this treatment. I deserve to be loved. And if you're incapable of doing this, then goodbye. If your partner is hurting you and they're not even willing to go to therapy with you, then I say pack your bags,
Yeah.
because that's a sign that they're saying, I don't want to look at myself. I don't want to acknowledge what's going on. I don't want to take any responsibility for what I'm doing. You know, typically they'll say, it's all you. If
Right.
you were
It's
just
your
this,
fault. You made me.
that's right. Right. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunately a horrible thing that men and women can also do to men, but people can do to each other. People who don't take responsibility for themselves, they blame you for what they're doing, called gaslighting. We see a lot in politics these days, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of disgusting. We see it right now, international, Russia saying the United States is creating a conflict with us. They've got over 100,000 people on the border, and it's our fault, right? Because they're
Yeah.
talking about going into Ukraine. It happens individually, with politicians, former presidents. I mean, it's wherever, where people don't have the emotional maturity. Like you said, they're narcissistic, they're power hungry, and they want to control, and they are sociopathic. They don't have a conscience, they don't have moral values, and they will do whatever they can in order to enhance what they want. Those are the people to avoid.
Right.
And typically, we get signals. It's not like out of the blue this happens. There are red flags. So the
Well,
question
let
is,
me let you go into some of those in a minute. I want to say one thing. Viewers, uh, give us about 10 more minutes and then we'll start taking your questions, okay? So
mhm.
get your questions ready and um, and then you'll type them in and I'll feature them across the screen. So think about what you want to ask Dr. Ron, and then we'll open the floor up for you to do that. So, red flags. Great topic. So I'm with you. It's like, but these women, they have these horrible stories, and it's like, didn't you notice that this wasn't right, or that, didn't he tell lies before it became this awful, and your money was taken, and all this other stuff happened? What kinds of things do you say that someone should notice as a red flag right off the bat? There have to be at least a few.
People generally will reveal who they are. It's not a secret. Part of the problem is we think, oh, you see them doing it to other people, and you go, oh, they wouldn't do that to me. You know, she loves me. They wouldn't do that to me. Or, I can change him. I can change her. I just love them so much and be so nice to them that I will help them grow and evolve out of this. So, if people are lying, cheating, stealing, uh, being disloyal, I mean, those are huge things in a relationship that's going to last over time. How can you have a coherent, intact family, raise children with any kind of values if the primary parent is lying, cheating, stealing, being dishonest? Kids aren't blind. They see this stuff. And so they're basically taught that, well, I guess it's all right to be this way. That's the way dad
Right.
is or mom is. That's how life is.
What do you think about people who um, have a sense? Well, the best thing I can think of is it must be some kind of abandonment issue because the idea of leaving sends them into a tailspin of that person leaving them, even if they know that's what should be happening. It's for their own mental and emotional health, or for the mental, emotional, and even physical health of their children. They just don't seem to be able to make that break on their own.
Deborah, you asked the greatest questions, I have to say, because that is another key element. If we are abandoned as a child, our parents worked all the time and they dumped you with a relative. I have many stories. People, kids, they're raised by a grandmother who's schizophrenic, right? So not
Oh,
only are they not with their primary mother or father, they're with an adult who is unavailable to bond, to connect, and help develop nurturing relationships. Your parents are mean hearted. So they're mad at you and they blame you and they reject you and tell you, you're worthless. You'll never amount to anything. You're no good. Um, we think that because we're basically brainwashed, right? We're programmed that our inner child believes that junk. And so we're afraid to leave because we really can't tolerate being with ourselves because our inner life is toxic. One of the things that meditation, along with some good psychotherapy or coaching, will do is it helps you create an inner world that is very nurturing. If you can quiet your mind and connect with spirit, there is so much love, so much peace. It is so nurturing that to have 5 minutes, I meditate a few hours a day, but even if you spend 5 minutes in that state, it can change your life. It will nurture you at the deepest levels. Many people, they close their eyes, they start to meditate, and they get anxious because they haven't resolved those early wounds. And those things start to come into their field of awareness and they get uncomfortable. So we mentioned before, you have to be courageous to do this. That if you can deal with that stuff, resolve it, and move past, your inner life can be a wonderful place. You don't have to go anywhere. People go, oh, I need a vacation. I need to move. I need a different this. I need a different that. The reality is, Deborah, that we take ourselves wherever we go.
oh, my grandpa used to say that every week. Oh my, he said that all the time. Oh my
Wherever
God.
you go, there you are. So changing partners, places, people is not going to solve a problem. It's just going to change the cast of characters, but things will get recreated again.
I've
So,
always thought that, Dr. Mann, from, the guy kind of guys that they call players. They
mhm,
just go from woman to woman, woman to woman, woman to woman. I've always thought that about them because they seem to just really want to avoid at all costs being by themselves and figuring out why are they so empty that they feel the need to just go, and drain women emotionally, one woman after another. I rarely see them be alone, just by themselves, just be.
right. It's an addiction, form of addiction. Uh, because of that inner emptiness, that they're looking for outer stimuli. It's people, it's sex, it's whatever, in order to keep them occupied on the surface. And intimacy requires a comfort with being quiet, being within yourself, sharing stuff. So if you're uncomfortable with what's in there, you're not going to do that. So you're not going to stick around long enough to give anybody a chance to see what's in there because you can't tolerate it. You don't want anybody to know what's in there.
Hmm. Yeah, I had a friend who was married to a man that was like that. He, he just flatly told her one day, and she called me in tears, saying her husband didn't want to answer her questions, and she was just trying to have a conversation, getting his opinion and feelings about some different things, and he told her, "Get out of my head," and
Right.
just walked out of the room.
See,
She was devastated.
unfortunately, what you and I might regard as a gift, someone actually caring about what we think and what we feel and wanting to get close, is regarded as a threat. People like that. My own father, he passed away, so I'm going to say this. My mom has passed away too, and so it doesn't matter. He was a physician, smart guy, practicing private practice, did well. I'm getting my PhD in psychology, so I'm learning some things. And I remember this time, I didn't have my PhD yet, but I knew something. And so we're talking, and we're just having a conversation. And I'm just using my skills that I learned about communication. I'm listening more, I'm asking questions. And so I asked him a question about something. He went mute, and I saw sweat, beads of sweat form on his forehead.
Whoa.
He went catatonic. He didn't answer the question. And I saw very clearly that my desire to get close to him was actually hurting him because
Wow.
and so I didn't do that anymore. A loving gesture on my part is I gave him the space, and I didn't try and get him to talk about things and reveal things that he was so uncomfortable with. And so, if you have somebody like that, then there's a challenge of, how do you, especially if you're married, how can you perhaps take some steps over time to create an environment that's more conducive to an open exchange. But it'll take some work, and it takes kindness and understanding.
Well, let's start taking questions. We have one here from Ash. She says, "I'm an empath and sensitive. I tend to attract people who talk nonstop about themselves with no interest in me. Other than good boundaries, are there ways I could limit this happening?"
Yeah, there are. It's a great question. I have the same experience. See, the reality is that when we are meeting people and we're talking to people, sorry to say, most people are not present. We talk and they're thinking about what they're going to say. They're thinking about the next thing they're going to do. Their eyes are dancing all over the place. They're not making a real personal consciousness connection with you. And so they're not very present. Because you're an empath and you're sensitive, you're giving a gift to somebody that generally they do not get in their lives. They've got a person who's present, who's tuned in, connecting, empathetic, probably compassionate. They are going to spill their guts to you and because you are a rarity in their life. I've had people talk to me, uh, and I remember one woman at one point, she stopped, she goes, "What are you doing to me? Are you hypnotizing me? I don't tell anybody any of this stuff. What's going on here?" And she got up and she walked away. You know,
Wow.
and I was doing nothing. All I was doing was listening. When my mother had cancer, hospice was involved. And a nurse came over the house and she asked me how I was doing. And I laughed because she was like this person who asked the question. She was empathetic. She was 100% present. She was there. I don't meet too many people like that in my life. And I thought, well, this is so sweet that she's got that. And I kind of laughed because she was so rare and good at her job, And so, we had a nice conversation. So the first thing to do is one, realize that these people will never stop talking. Uh, as
Oh my
long
God.
as you're that present, they will be glued to you. It's a magnetic thing. They will keep uh, talking, talking, talking as long as you're there. So what you need to do is to feel comfortable with saying, well, I really have to go. It's been nice talking with you. Uh, bye bye, and walk away. So, rather than kind of degrade yourself in cutting yourself off, closing your heart, shutting down, which would be painful. I mean, anybody who's really that sensitive, it feels nice to be open because there's a flow of love and energy that happens in that state. So I would just, one, be aware that that's going to happen, all right? And make a conscious choice. How much are you willing to engage people like that and give them the gift of your listening presence? And when you feel like, well, they've got about as much as I'm interested in giving right now, then just interrupt them because they're not going to breathe. There's not even a moment in there, a little opening. It's like, don't you people
Oh,
ever breathe? It's like they just talk, talk, talk. So I would just interrupt and say, hey, this has been great. It's really been nice meeting. And I appreciate you sharing all this with me, but I do have to go, God bless you. Good luck, blah, 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 blah. So can we find, was that helpful? Can we get a response? That's Ash.
I'm sure it was. I want
Yeah.
to share, you got me thinking about something that happened to me. And I don't know, I didn't think I was, and I don't know, empath or whatever, but I was leaving my brother's house in Washington, D.C. one year. This was years ago. And we stopped by a friend of his house before we went to the airport, and she gave me a book. And it was something about, spirituality and forgiveness or something. I don't know. It had a bunch of essays in it. And I thought, oh, God, I don't want to read this on the plane. Wanted something exciting. But I took it. She gave it to me, so I took it. Now I'm on the plane, and this woman sits next to me, and I'm in by the window. She's in the middle. And Dr. Mann, she started crying. I mean, she was crying. And so I asked her what's wrong. And she says, I just came from my brother's funeral. And then she started telling me all the horrible, abusive, I won't go into details, things that her brother, he was the older brother, had done to her as a child. And I remember, that book, it was in my lap, and I just flipped open a page, and it happened to be a page that was about forgiveness for someone who just died. I swear this happened. And the book, it was not my book. It was gifted to me not an hour or so before. So I looked at it and I said, I think this was meant for you. I was here. This was given to me to give to you. So I passed it to her. And that's a 4-hour flight.
Right.
So she sat there and she was reading the book. And then at the end of it, her whole demeanor had changed. She was smiling and laughing, thanking me over and over. And to this day, I'm still kind of confused by, the chain of events because it happened so fast. And then we get off the plane. She introduces me to her husband, her family who was waiting for her. And I'm telling you, it was just like she was a different woman and she was going to give it back. I said, no, I think I was meant to give that to you. So, you take it and I hope it does you well. And this is a true story. I mean, I'm still kind of like, what?
Oh, Deborah, I'm sure it's true. I had similar experiences. I remember flying back from Hawaii once. We're coming into LA. We're in the landing pattern, right? They're announcing, buckle up, we're landing. Stewardesses are supposed to be getting their stuff together. Stewardess comes over. I'm on the aisle seat. The stewardess comes over, and out of the blue, I mean, we hadn't talked the whole flight. Within a minute, she's telling me about her father who had died, and she's crying.
Oh,
I'm, talking to her, and after a couple of minutes, she goes, well, I really need to get back to work. Thank you so much. And she went off. That when we have a certain kind of gift, and you have it, Deborah, you're kind, you're compassionate, you're wise, you're sensitive. God uses us. to help other people.
That's what a lot of my viewers have said. I'm
It
the
is.
least religious person that you would ever see. So
Well,
I
I'm
find,
not talking religion, Deborah. I'm not talking religion. I don't care what you believe in. There's all kinds of religions. I'm talking about the presence of spirit in any form you like, right? That spirit is real and spirit works through us, right? And so if you've made a commitment and based on your show, I know you have a desire to help other people.
yes,
Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. And so you're available. Some part of you has made the offer to the universe and say, well, I'm available. Use me, to help make the world a better place. And this is your life's work. And so God gives a book to somebody, somebody gives the book to you. It's no accident the woman sits next to you. You got the book, no accident you open the page. To me, that's the magic and the wonder of life. When we're
yeah,
out
it
there,
was definitely to me, was one of those, draw kind of moments because that had never happened to me before.
right,
Wow. Well, we have another question here for you.
good.
Let me see. What happened to it? Oh, here it is. Faith wants to know, how has meditating for hours a day shaped you as a person?
It's a good question. Thank you for asking because I love to talk about meditation. It's made me a better person. When I go into meditation has a process. You use certain techniques. You use the breath. Uh, the breath controls the flow of energy. Our consciousness gets withdrawn into our spine, and then through visualization and some other techniques, we can draw the energy up to our spiritual eye. When we're drawn within and we go deeper within, there's a figure ground shift that happens. Typically, we identify with our thoughts and our emotions. If we have a thought or we feel something, that we think that, well, that's really me. That's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
As you go into meditation and you use techniques, you're being aware of energy and consciousness, and you become an observer. You're observing your thoughts. You're observing your emotions. So you're sitting there, tension's focused up here, the breath comes in, and a thought, sometimes like a little movie. It's amazing what the mind creates. It creates a little movie. Sometimes they're not even based on our lives. It's just weirdest stuff comes up. So a little movie comes into your mind, and you see it, and you realize that, well, that's a thought that has been generated, and it may connect to images, may connect to past stuff, who knows what. But as you watch it and you don't get caught up in it, it's like a dream. You don't get so sucked into it that you lose the perspective that you're aware and you're watching it. Something begins to disengage, and you are now centered in an aspect of your soul that is very peaceful, very calm. When we deepen consciousness and we have a direct experience of life force energy, everything we are is an energetic realm. Our thought, our emotions, our body. You've heard about healers. They put their hands over you and
Right.
something happens. How does that happen? Simple. They are tuned into this energetic field. They're able to kind of be an instrument to channel it through them. They can feel your vibration. They can fine tune you like a fine tuned instrument, change your subtle energy that filters down into your physical body. And then things change in your physical body. Well, we can do that with our thoughts, our emotions, our kind of psychological makeup. A lot of us have wounds from childhood. We can heal those wounds. If we're involved in the world a lot, especially if we watch TV and watch the news, it's very hard not to become toxic.
Yeah,
Right?
I haven't watched
Yeah,
the news in
I,
30
I,
years.
I can watch a little bit, but not much because it's just horrible.
Right.
And so you can clean yourself out inner light is like taking a shower. It purifies consciousness and it fills us with love, peace, joy, light. And when that gets stronger, at some point, it's like overflowing. And so just being in the world becomes a gift. Because if we hold that presence, like the empath who's talking to somebody, if you're in your heart and you're feeling this love, it actually gets expressed out. And so you can have a positive impact on your environment. Transcendental meditation people years ago did a study in Chicago. They were having one of their annual meetings. They had 20,000 people show up for a couple weeks. And so they're meditating together, 20,000 people every day.
Oh my God.
So they did a social study. They looked at the incidence and prevalence of violent crime, and they got the baseline. Then they tracked it over time while this transcendental meditation group was doing their thing in Chicago, and the rate went down.
Wow.
And then when they all left, rate came back up.
Well,
And
Dr.
so
Mann, how would somebody say, you've never meditated before, but the way that you present it sounds like something that, we might want to explore. What, where, how, how do you get started? Do you have any
I
tips
do.
for that?
There's different ways. One way, if you go to my website, I have a couple websites. Go to ronmann.com. I have made some meditation CDs. They're 30 minutes. They're MP3 downloads, so like $8. It's nothing. You can get guided meditation training. It'll walk you through. It's got beautiful music. I'm guiding you through kind of this inner journey. That's one way. Another way, I've been involved in the Self-Realization Fellowship for 40 years. There's an advanced meditation process called Kriya Yoga, and it's taught through the Self-Realization Fellowship. So if you go to yogananda.org, you can find their website and you can get their lessons and the meditation techniques. They have all kinds of online classes and trainings. There are a lot of people teaching meditation, and some of it they just call mindfulness, which
Right.
is kind of a beginning meditation. Close your eyes, keep your awareness here, and you just watch your thoughts. It's a good way to start, but there's techniques that are more sophisticated and more powerful than that, because that meditation technique does not use energy, doesn't teach you how to use the breath and to transmute consciousness through energy. So if you want to start with that, great. But look for teachers who also talk about the transmutation of energy and how to use the breath in consciousness. In America, when you say yoga, most people think about the physical postures.
Right.
Yoga means stretching. Well, yoga means union, and yoga is an eightfold path. The hatha yoga, the stretching part, is just one of the eightfold paths. And so if you even take a yoga class, go find a yoga teacher who's teaching hatha yoga, but is also integrating the breath. So when you're into a stretch, you're breathing into the stretch and you'll begin to see the magic that consciousness has on your body. You can lean in and come to the place where that's it. I can't go anymore. You don't force it. You just stay on the edge of that, breathe, keep your attention focused right on that spot and the tension, and you'll feel your body dissolve and open, and
Wow.
you'll go deeper. And that's how consciousness works.
I
And so
must need to try it again. I tried yoga, but that was probably about 10 years ago, and I thought I was going to die. And it hurt so much. And I was sweating. It was awful. It was awful. And I didn't realize how stiff I was. But, hearing you describe it, I think that wasn't a good teacher. There was no conversation
Mhm.
about breathing or anything like that. It was just going from one stretch to another.
Yeah, that's like calisthenics in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was actually sweating. You're right. That's what it was. And I don't think that was good. Let's get so a couple. Do you guys have any more questions for Dr. Mann? Questions about his LFI? For those of you who may have missed it, he developed a questionnaire where you can kind of get into your, kind of survey yourself and see where you're strong and where you're weak as far as qualities to have in a relationship. I thought that was just brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
While we're
So
waiting
if you
for a question, Faith, there's more. Meditation has made me more compassionate. It's made me wiser because the soul's intuition doesn't come from the intellect. It doesn't come from the brain. It comes from the heart and the soul. And so I understood things more deeply through meditation. Helped me with when I was working with people. It helped me engage them more effectively, connect with them more quickly, and it opened up this world of subtle energy that allowed me to heal people.
it's wonderful. So let me scroll down and see if anyone else has a question. Oh, this is about what music megahertz. Is that what that is?
Hmm.
Makes a difference in help your frequency.
Absolutely. You know, everything is vibration. Music is a powerful vibration. You look at spiritual traditions and people sing. Baptist church, there's a lot of singing that opens up your heart. Uh, in the yoga world, there's devotional chanting. There's mantras. If it's a certain language, Sanskrit or Hebrew, they're called seed languages. The word itself has a vibration. So when you repeat the sound, and you can do this while you're chanting, um, it changes the vibration in your consciousness. And so, just like if we're listening to music that is angry, and the words are disrespectful to people and negative, that tends to draw our consciousness down, right? If we listen to music that's
Mm.
uplifting, higher vibrations, tends to make us feel lighter, more loving. And music is a profound way to help people kind of wake up, evolve, become more loving, happier.
This is interesting because a lot of what's going on is the violence in our current society and the oh well just the awful things being said and done towards women is associated with the kind of music that's popular, the more pop music and some hip hop and rap and that kind of stuff.
I find that kind of music distressing. You
Yeah,
know,
I can't listen to it either.
I won't listen to it because it's so negative, um, and the messages are so dark uh, and hurtful that I just don't think that's a good thing for people to be saying. I'm making a lot of money doing it, or for people to be listening to.
Especially young children. And, I'm very concerned about the popularity of a lot of this stuff. You got impressionable young boys listening to that, all the women being called awful names and all that. And they're absorbing all that negative energy, as you call it,
That's
and taking that out into the world with them when they go. And the way they talk to women, the way they treat women, to me, it mirrors a lot of the messages in the music.
It does, and I don't think it's a good thing.
So those of you who are parents, listen to Dr. Mann. Let's curb that. So what's a good thing for us to replace that with? What kinds of music um, are good to listen to kind of bring you back down to earth?
Well, I think there's choices that people can make based upon their faith and their interests. I mean, if you're a Christian, there's a lot of great Christian music around that's beautiful. If you're into meditation, there's a lot of great chanting that's very beautiful that comes out of kind of India and yogic traditions. A lot of it's in Sanskrit, some of it's in English. Uh, the music itself has a certain vibration, and the
Hmm.
sounds tend to uh, br- bring a lot of joy and peace and love into your life. If you just listen to instrumental, didn't even have to have words, just peaceful um, music. It can be piano, it can be guitar, it could be whatever you like, but there's a vibration in it that's peaceful, and you feel uplifted. So if you listen to something and you feel better, that's good music to listen to. If you feel agitated, anxious, angry, disturbed, chances are that's probably not the best thing to be listening to.
Oh boy. Well, it looks like we don't. In the survey, there's the scroll up Candace, or you can go into the show description below, and you'll see the link to take to get more information.
And
But I
also,
do want to give you the opportunity to sum things up and once again say where people can find you online.
thank you, Deborah. Well, as a summary for everything we've talked about, I would say the most important thing you can do if you want to deepen the capacity uh, to bring love into your life is to work on yourself. Have the courage to spend some time in a quiet space and introspect. Look inside, reflect on how you feel, what you think, how you're behaving. And if you see there are areas to improve, then do it. If you need help, don't be shy. Go find a coach, go find a therapist. The Love Factor Inventory is a tool. It's kind of a sacred process. When you engage in the process of this kind of self discovery, it can jumpstart and take you much deeper. You can find out about this at lovefactorinventory.com. There's also a free version of this. It's called the Introspective Guide, and you'll see it if you go to the home page. It pops up. You can take it for free and get a flavor of it. And if you take it and you want to talk about what it means, I'll give you a few minutes of free time. Send me an email, and we'll set up a Zoom call, and we'll kind of briefly go over it.
That's excellent. Thank you for that offer. Well, everyone, that's Dr. Ronald Mann. We enjoyed his conversation. It's ah, very inspirational. Very, very, very good information. I love it. And that's part of what we're trying to do is get people to look more within and stop trying, just quiet themselves. Stop being so busy and distracting yourself with activities and hobbies and other people and work and drinking and smoking and all the other things that people do to distract themselves from doing the hard work that they need to do to become the better person that they claim they want to be. So I appreciate your time.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And I think you're providing a great service to your listeners. And you're such a lovely person. It's a pleasure to have the time chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mann. I'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thanks.
So, everyone, that was Dr. Ronald Mann. If you came late and you missed some of it, I do suggest that you go back and listen to the whole interview because it was some great information. It might be, a little, some people aren't really there yet where they're going to understand some of the spiritual references and that he was making. But I've kind of, I want you to try to hear it and try to put yourself in that page and start thinking about the things that he's going to talk about that he talks about in the interview. Take a look at his webpage and then start trying to do the things recommended: meditation, the self-guided thinking, what planning yourself. Take the survey that he has online, the LFI survey, and assess yourself. And I think it's a good place for us to start. I'm glad he was early in Debruary because I think if the more of you can go through and take that, it'll help it'll help you get more and better out of the subsequent interviews that we're going to have the rest of this month. So yeah, so what do we have coming up tomorrow? I don't remember. I should have brought my index so I could have looked at it. I think we have um, oh, Wendy Dumbroff is tomorrow. We're going to be talking about letting go of shame, the shame that a lot of people feel that keeps them stuck or keeps them from trying things because they feel like they don't really deserve to do more, have better because of some situation that happened to them. So Wendy, who was a guest, I don't know, a year or two ago, yes, I don't know, I think 2020 maybe, is going to be here tomorrow at 6 o'clock again. So we do hope to see you then. If you guys have any questions, Dr. Mann has offered to have a brief Zoom call with you. Try not to go crazy, just a few minutes or one question, please. And we don't want to wear the man out. But I think I would like to have him back. So we'll look into that for February next year. In the meantime, you guys go out and enjoy the rest of your evening. If you, like I said, if you missed the early part of the video, please take a moment and go back and listen to it. Check out his website and enjoy yourself the rest of the evening. And I'll see you guys here tomorrow, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. One more time as we go into day 4 of February 2022. Bye-bye.